Okay, so we made it to Module 5. What I'm going to talk about in this module is enrollment guidance. You know, someone is not automatically able to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan or a drug plan or switch those plans if maybe the one that they currently have isn't working for them. So we're going to review the situations when someone can make that change or sign up initially. Um, there are times maybe someone is on a new drug that maybe isn't in a plan's formulary, or they have to go to a new doctor that's perhaps not in network, and that can initiate I want to change plans, and then we kind of look and see if there is a reason for them to do that, or if they perhaps have to wait. Now, what we're going to talk about is the different enrollment periods, those that happen every year, and then special enrollment periods that would be based on someone's specific situation, enrollment requests, beneficiary acknowledgements, discrimination prohibitions, post-enrollment activities and rules, and then disenrollment. Now, one of the things that I personally use a lot in talking about enrollment periods is CMS has this publication. It's called Understanding Medicare Advantage and Medicare Drug Plan Enrollment Periods. And the publication number is 11219. So if you Google CMS publication 11219, you can print this off. And if you can't find it, let me know. But I personally really like this publication because it goes through all the potential enrollment periods that someone might have. Initial enrollment periods, and the way that it's designed is, it says if this describes you, you can at this time. So, sometimes we have to kind of go down this, if this describes you column, lets us know what that person can do and when, so that the time frame. So again, and there's other publications, I just really like this one, Understanding Medicare Advantage and Drug Plan Enrollment Periods. So let's see, roadmap to enrollment periods. Now, every year there are fixed times that someone can change their plans. The annual election period, it's every year, October 15th through December 7th. There's going to be a 1/1 effective date. So the next year, that time frame, but with a 1/1 effective date. And it's just a time for people to look at. They should have gotten an annual notice of change from their current plan company. They look at it and say, okay, is this something that I am comfortable with, these changes? If there are any, there usually is something. Are my doctors still in network? And do I have any new prescription drugs? And then they, just basically decide, do I stay with the plan that I have? Is it working well for me? If they decide to stay, don't have to do anything. It'll automatically transfer to the next year. So that's the annual election period. There's the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. We'll talk more about that. That's January 1st through March 31st every year. And then, when someone is first eligible for Medicare, whether they're turning 65 or maybe they're beyond 65 and just retiring and taking B at that point. If somebody's younger than 65 but has been on Social Security disability for 2 years, that's they go on Medicare then. So there are times, individual circumstances that allow someone to sign up or change plans. Special election periods, we're going to go through those, and then continuous open enrollment for institutionalized individuals. So again, people can only enroll at certain times a year or under certain circumstances. And we're going to go over what some of those situations are. And if somebody submits an application, we have to write on the app what is allowing them to have this plan, what election period they're using. If there's not a election period that the person qualifies for, then they're not able to enroll. There's, like I said, the initial election period, the Part D initial enrollment period. Those two tend to go together. Annual election period, special election period. So there's quite a few. So this is a summary of what some of the enrollment periods are. Like I said, I personally like this one. I think it gives more details. It's really helpful, but this kind of gives you an idea. So, the initial election period, initial enrollment period, we'll talk about that, the annual election period, the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period, special election periods, and then the institutionalized individuals enrollment period. So initial enrollment period. When someone is turning 65, for example, there's a 7-month window. There's their birth month, there's 3 months prior, and then 3 months after. Ideally, we like to take care of their options and have them make a decision at the beginning of the 3 months prior. If somebody is going to continue working past age 65, tend to take A when they're first eligible because they've already paid for it. Remember my issues with saying that A is free. It's not free, it's just the person's already paid for it through 10 years of payroll deduction. So, there is a 7-month period. And if the person is, like I said, working past 65, they can put off B, assuming they have creditable coverage at their employer, or access to creditable coverage. But that's that 7-month window. And then what someone can do is, they're going to sign up for Medicare, assuming that that's best for their situation. They're going to sign up for Medicare. Usually it's effective the first of their birth month, assuming their birthday isn't the first of the month. In that case, Medicare is effective the first of the previous month, but in general, it's going to be the first of their birth month. So they're going to enroll in Medicare, and then they can enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan. They can get a drug plan. They can get a Med Sup. So that's how that works. And again, ideally, if the person is going to go on Medicare when they're first eligible, because of the fact that they're turning 65, they're able to sign up for A and B that first month of the 7-month window. It's going to be effective the first of their birth month, typically. And then, whatever other plan they're going to sign up for is going to also coincide with that effective date. And then, the Part D, the drug initial enrollment period, normally it's the same 7-month window, 3 months before birth month, 3 months after. So normally it's the same enrollment period. So the annual election period, it's from October 15th to December 7th. It's a time for us to contact our clients We can talk to them about the next year's plans as of October 1st. Can't sign them up for a new plan if they decide that they want to switch until the 15th. So that's, they should get their annual notice of change in September. So that's, that's a really busy time for us in the Medicare world, is that annual election period. If somebody decides that they're staying put, they like the plan they're on, they've reviewed their annual notice of change, looks good, my doctors are still in network, the drugs are still in the formulary, nothing, we don't have to do anything. It's automatic, renewal into the next year. One thing to keep in mind with this annual election period, and this is not typical of other election periods, but the beneficiary can sign up for multiple plans. The last one is the one that takes. So, let's say you sign one of your clients up, they want to switch plans, and then they see an ad on TV and they decide to call that company and sign up for that plan. That's the one, whatever the last plan is that they sign up for in this October 15th through December 7th timeframe is the one that's going to stick. So what does that mean for us? It means if you sign someone up, keep in touch with them. You're going to want to do that anyway, but this is another reason. Do you have questions? Have you, what can I do for you? Is there anything else that you need from me? But just kind of keep in touch with them and make sure that they understand what they have, understand that that's the best plan for them. And then if they do see an ad on TV or whatever, they'll bring it up to you and you can answer their questions. So just be aware of that. So the time frame for submitting enrollment forms can't be before October the 15th. So if a company receives an application prior to October 15th and their election period that's being used as the annual election period, then they'll process it. The company will process it as of October the 15th, but it's a definite no-no for a certified agent to submit an application prior to October 15th. If that happens, the beneficiary, the enrollee, will get an acknowledgement letter letting them know, this was submitted too early, but we're gonna hold on to it. So this is basically what I said is anything that's received prior is not good for an agent. It's got to be during that October 15th through December 7th marketing, that time frame. Now, if you have someone that say is turning 65 in October, then yeah, you can submit it earlier, of course, because it's a different enrollment period. So it's just for the annual enrollment period that we have to be concerned about that time frame. So the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period. This is a fairly new enrollment period, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And basically how that works is it's from January 1st through March 31st of every year. Someone has to have a Medicare Advantage plan to take advantage of this enrollment period. If they don't have a Medicare Advantage plan, this isn't going to work for them. So it's basically, let's say, for example, you've signed someone up for a Medicare Advantage plan during open enrollment. The beginning of the year comes and they realize, I just found out that I have to see a different doctor. New doctor isn't in network or whatever the reason is. They call you and say, this plan's not working for me. You're able to switch them, and it's going to have an effective date the first of the next month. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this enrollment period is we can't market it. All right, so you can't let your clients know, if you don't like this, call me and we'll be able to change you. So we can't market this Medicare Advantage open enrollment period, but just know that it's there in case you get a client that calls you and wants to switch plans. And this is what people can do during this time frame. They can use it to switch to a different Medicare Advantage plan with drug coverage or without drug coverage, or they can go back to original Medicare. So during this time frame, the person can only change plans once. It's not like the annual election period where they can do it multiple times and the last one sticks. During this enrollment period, it's a one-time change. Okay. Let's see, newly eligible. So a newly eligible Medicare Advantage person, enrollee, can change it once, like we said. And it's only, this enrollment period is only for those first 3 months. Okay. So special election periods. There are quite a few that people can use to change plans. Again, this publication lists everything. Well, I say everything, but there's maybe some that we'll talk about that might not be here specifically, but it lists those that happen every year. It lists special election periods, and we're going to talk about those. And again, when you complete an application for a client, we have to indicate on the application what enrollment period this person qualifies for. Okay. And then in general, it's a one-time thing. So the person has an enrollment period, they submit an application, that's it. That they've used that enrollment period up, and they can't keep submitting applications for it. So what are some examples? Change in residence. So if somebody changes residence, they move outside of the service area of the plan that they've had, then that opens an enrollment period. Now, if they move somewhere, let's say, that still has the plan that they are on currently, but it gives them access to additional plans, that's an enrollment period. So change in residence, involuntary loss of creditable drug coverage, gaining or losing Medicaid eligibility. So somebody's, say, on a dual plan and they lose Medicaid eligibility, that's going to give them an election period. And then gaining or losing the low income subsidy or extra help. Losing employer coverage, and that's a pretty common one. Somebody's working past 65 and they, finally decide that they're going to retire. Their employer coverage ends at a specific day, and ideally what you want to do is you want to have the employer coverage end maybe the end of 1 month, and then their Medicare Advantage plan or whatever, MedSup, whatever they've decided on, is going to start the first of the next month, so that there's no lapse in coverage. So, or if somebody has a chronic condition and, it makes them eligible for a chronic special needs plan. So there are a good amount of enrollment periods. And again, there's one opportunity during, most election periods for the person to use it once. And then once they've used it, then, that's it. Okay. Chronic conditions. So if somebody has a chronic condition, we talked about those special needs plans, it allows them to sign up for that plan. And then say they no longer have that qualifying condition, then they no longer, of course, qualify for that plan. But that does give them an enrollment period to sign up for a different plan. involuntary loss of creditable drug coverage. So, they get a letter in the mail saying this is no longer going to be creditable. Remember, that word means it's at least as good as that basic plan that we talked about in earlier modules. So it's no longer creditable. It gives them the opportunity to, join a different plan that is creditable. That SEP, that enrollment period, begins the month in which they are advised of loss of creditable coverage, and it ends 2 months after the loss of creditable coverage, or the date the person received the notice that it wasn't going to be creditable, whichever is later. And again, people that are dually eligible for Medicare and Medicaid, it's kind of common that they might lose Medicaid eligibility and then gain Medicaid eligibility. That's an enrollment period that allows them to change plans. Okay, now let's see. This is assistance from Medicaid, have a SEP or LIS, low income subsidy, that's extra help. They have that SEP, takes place the first 9 months of each calendar year. So, whenever they get notified that they're losing that coverage or help. So it's the first 9 months of the year. And the reason for that is the last part of the year is when the enrollment annual election period is in effect. So it gives them the opportunity at the end of the year to change plans. So this is another enrollment period. If somebody has been identified as being potential at risk or at risk, and this is, we talked about this earlier, it tends to be if people have, maybe an opioid addiction or some sort of misuse of abuse of frequently abused drugs. But if they've been identified as being potential at risk or at risk, then that's going to limit their election period. So, if somebody is in this category, they can't just keep changing plans, because what they don't want to avoid is the person maybe switching plans and then having access to drugs that could be an issue for them. Okay, and then this notes that the person can appeal their designation of at risk or potential at risk. Again, change in Medicaid or LIS/extra help status, it happens. Somebody might have additional resources that they now have access to that could, take them out of Medicaid eligibility, or they can, lose resources that will make them eligible. So it can either be the addition of Medicaid or LIS or taking it away, but that does give them an enrollment period. Okay. So other common SEPs, we talked about change of residence. This tells you when the SEP is in effect. Again, that info is in here also. Change in residence, like I said, whether it gives them access to additional plans or they just move out of their plan service area. Because remember, that's for someone to sign up for a plan, they have to be in that plan service area. And then there's others, the employer union coverage, somebody is retiring, they become lawfully present. I mean, there are a number of SEPs. Now, one thing I mentioned is that there are additional SEPs that I've seen lately. One is in New York State, gun control, gun issues. And it was for the whole state. The governor declared it a emergency. So that opened up an election period. And then COVID has definitely opened up an election period. A 5-star plan. Now, CAFL is located in Rochester, New York. We have access now in 2022 to some 5-star plans that Excelis has. So if somebody lives in an area that there are 5-star plans, they're able to switch to that plan. It opens up an election period. If they have a low performing plan, then that opens up an election period. They can get out of that plan. And then again, disaster, emergency, and it's the gun issues in New York State, and then COVID are the ones that I'm familiar with recently. So open enrollment period for institutionalized individuals. This is available for people that move into, are already living in, or move out of an institution. And that would be maybe a skilled nursing facility, rehab, intermediate care facility, like hospital or long-term care hospital. So if somebody is institutionalized, they have a continuous open enrollment period as long as the person is in the institution. And what that means is that they can change when they need to. And it ends 2 months after the month the person moves out of the institution. They can make an unlimited number of enrollment requests. They can go back to original Medicare. They can go to a different Medicare plan. So if somebody is in an institution, just be aware that there are, there's an enrollment period that's ongoing. So enrollment requests. There are different ways that we can submit enrollment requests. Paper. There's still people that like to use paper, and that's, acceptable. There are a lot of electronic ways that we can enroll someone. I know during COVID in 2020, during lockdown, there had been a lot of agents that really liked paper. They were just used to submitting paper. And because of lockdown, they were kind of forced to go to electronic ways of submitting enrollment requests. And I got a lot of, calls from agents saying, boy, this is really easy. And it is. So if you're not currently using online enrollment requests, let me know, because there are a lot of ways out there that we can do it, and it's pretty easy. There's multiple ways that people can enroll, and the companies have to accept the enrollment requests, no matter if they were a result of a face-to-face interview, if you got that in the mail, if it was faxed, if it's sent to the company, any of these ways. If the person has an enrollment period that's available to them, then the company has to accept it. So one thing to keep in mind, I know currently, and I also, there's going to be additional ways opening up for people to submit electronic apps, but currently United Healthcare has Lean, super easy. Excelis, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Western New York. There's something called Medicare Full. There's multiple ways. Again, there's going to be additional availability of electronic enrollment. But one thing to keep in mind is that someone's able to go to Medicare.gov and sign themselves up. So just be careful of recommending that your clients go to the Medicare.gov site, because what you don't want is doing the research for what their options are and then having them go to Medicare.gov or to the company websites themselves and signing up, because then you're out of it. You're not the agent. So there are multiple ways that people can sign up. but just know that there's a lot available to us that's pretty easy. Telephone. You may have clients that say, you know, I signed up with you, but then somebody called me and offered me this additional benefit. I didn't realize I was signing up over the phone. That happens. So people are able to call the different companies and enroll over the phone. Calls have to be recorded. If somebody is enrolling over the phone, the person has to be advised that they're completing an enrollment request. You know, they have to agree to be recorded. So, you know, just be aware that this is a thing that people can enroll over the phone with the different companies. And if they do that direct, then you're pretty much, you know, you're not going to be their agent. You're not going to get commissions. You're not going to be able to help them in the future. And then use of appropriate enrollment forms. You know, if somebody is already enrolled, say, with United Healthcare, and they want to switch plans, there is a short form. You know, doesn't really normally get used, or at least not that I'm aware of, but there are shorter forms because the company already has a lot of their information because they're already enrolled with the company. So there are short forms. The opt-in mechanism, again, this is a way for companies to use data that they already have. The person is already in a plan, so the company already has their information in their system, and then they can opt in to, you know, just having the change be made quickly and more easily, I guess I should say. So who can complete the enrollment form? Normally, it's just the beneficiary. And again, that means the person, the enrollee. So normally it's just the person that's turning 65, that's newly eligible, that's switching plans. The only way that someone else can fill out an enrollment request for someone is if they, say, have power of attorney for healthcare. They can, or in some way are a legal representative for the person. With an application, they don't have to submit power of attorney, you know, proof, I should say, that they're that they have that legal ability to sign for the person. They just have to be able to provide that if the company comes back and asks for it. So if it is someone that, say, has power of attorney for healthcare, they have to say that they have that authority under the state, and then provide contact information and say that they can provide proof if needed. So who can complete the enrollment? Again, marketing rep participation, you know, that's agents are, remember we talked, agents are considered marketing reps. If someone is assisting in the completion of a paper enrollment form, there is a section that the agent completes. It's going to have their name, their writing ID for that company. So, you know, if that's what you're doing, if you're a certified agent and are completing an app for someone, then there is a section on the application that you're going to put your information. Okay, so discrimination prohibitions. So beneficiary acknowledgements when enrolling. The person has to understand that to keep the Medicare plan, they have to have A and B. If they're enrolling into a Medicare Advantage plan or a MedSup, and if it's, say they're going to have original Medicare and are just signing up for a drug plan, then they have to understand that they must keep A or B if enrolling into the drug plan. They have to say that they're going to agree or understand that they agree to abide by membership rules as outlined in the materials, consent to the release of information to Medicare. So they're going to fill out this application. It's got some information on it, personal information. They have to understand that that information is going to be shared with Medicare. Understand that enrollment in another MA plan or drug plan will automatically disenroll them from their current plan, and then understand that they have the right to appeal service and payment denials. Can't deny or discourage someone to enroll based on the anticipated need for healthcare services. You know, basically you just can't discriminate. You know, any of these listed, you know, race, ethnicity, national origin, nothing like that. Geographic location. Say that only seniors can enroll, because that's not true. If somebody's younger than 65, but have been on Social Security disability for 24 months, they can have Medicare, as you know. Let's see, Medicare reps must comply with their obligations under other federal anti-discrimination rules. Can't ask health screening questions. Remember, it's not, there's no underwriting in New York, so that's not really an issue. So post-enrollment activities and rules. After a plan receives the request for enrollment, the person is going to get, within 10 calendar days, a notice from the company saying that they've received the enrollment request and showing the effective date of coverage. If the person has requested a copy of the paper enrollment application, they'll get that. And then, you know, proof of health insurance coverage. So, you know, let's say somebody enrolls the last day of a month, their effective date is the first day of the month. You know, there's always kind of a fingers crossed thing that they don't have maybe a doctor's appointment on, you know, the second day of that month, because getting their member ID that quickly can be an issue. But if somebody, you know, has a doctor's appointment or has to get a prescription filled, they will get, you know, proof of health insurance coverage so that they can start using the plan services ASAP. Let's see, the plan sponsor or the company will explain how much this is going to cost, you know, what the premium is, if there's a late enrollment penalty, so what the costs are. Let's see, lock-in requirements. So what that means is, let's say someone signs up during their initial enrollment period. Lock-in requirement means unless you have an enrollment period, you're locked into the plan. Okay, remember there's that annual enrollment period, but lock-in means if there's no other enrollment period, then you're locked into the plan. The potential for financial liability. So, you know, the person signs up, they have to put their Medicare ID number. They're saying that they have both A and B. If it's found that the person doesn't have it, then there could be financial liability. So, you know, they'll get like a welcome kit from the company that's going to have a lot of information. And again, this first bullet point is saying in some instances, the plan sponsor is unable to provide before the effective date. And that's where my example of, you know, the person signs up the end of one month and they want the effective date of the next day, basically. So, you know, they're not going to obviously have all this information before their effective date. So, you know, they're going to get a lot of information from the company, just letting them know, you know, what their responsibilities are, what the company's responsibilities are. There's going to be a lot of information. And then when does coverage begin? Again, I know I'm really kind of pushing this this publication that CMS has, but it does go into all of this. So initial coverage election period, it's going to be the first day of the month that the person's entitled to A and B. Usually it's going to be the first day of their birth month, unless they have that first day of the month birthday, in which case it's the month before. Annual election period, it's going to be January 1st of the following year. Open enrollment, first day after companies gotten the enrollment request. Same with the Medicare Advantage open enrollment period, and the special election period, usually the first day of the month. Let's see, if there's an application that's submitted and there are more than one enrollment period that the person has access to, the one that they're using has to be indicated on the application, and there's a spot on there that the agent checks off whatever enrollment period that they're using. So it just has to be indicated. If it's not, then the company will reach out and say, which election period is this person using? So disenrollment. Two types of disenrollment, voluntary and involuntary. It's obvious as to which is which. Voluntary, the person wants to disenroll. Involuntary, the company basically disenrolls them. It's involuntary. So plans or their marketing reps, you can't encourage someone to disenroll in the plan, except in certain situations. Like, for example, they lose their dual eligibility. They lose their chronic condition eligibility. The plans, the companies can contact to determine the reason for the voluntary disenrollment, but can't discourage the person. It's their choice. If they want to disenroll, they're able to disenroll. So during a valid enrollment or disenrollment period, the person can request disenrollment by enrolling in another plan, sending or faxing a signed notice. They don't want people calling in. It says right here that they can call, but they don't want that. If given, they would prefer that the person doesn't call in for that. So there are multiple ways that the person can disenroll. I would say the most common one is somebody enrolling in a new plan that will automatically disenroll them from the other. Employer union groups, we've talked about the fact that they really have a separate set of rules. So there may be another disenrollment mechanism that person has access to. So, these are the ways that someone can disenroll voluntarily. So for someone to be involuntarily disenrolled, it could be because the person moved out of the service area. Remember, that's a requirement for someone to sign up. They have to live in the service area of the plan. So if they move, that's an involuntary disenrollment. Or again, if they don't stay enrolled in A and B, say they stop paying for B, they're disenrolled. You have to have both A and B to have a Medicare Advantage plan. So, that cannot involuntarily disenroll them. Or they have just a drug plan and they're not enrolled in A or B, then that's an involuntary disenroll situation. So special needs enrollee, they lose the special needs status that we talked about. They're no longer dually eligible. The person passes away. The plan's contract is terminated. The service area is reduced. The company comes out and says, we're not going to have this plan in this county anymore. That happened a few years back with Aetna. So, these are all situations that there can be an involuntary disenrollment from the plan. They realize the person's not lawfully present in the U.S., for example. Moving out of the service area, there can be what they call an extended visitor or traveler benefit. So let's say someone is temporarily moving out of the area. With some plans, there can be a benefit of up to 12 months that they can stay out of the service area without being disenrolled. If the plan doesn't have this benefit, then if they're out of the area for more than 6 months, they can be involuntarily disenrolled. Okay. Optional involuntary disenrollment from these plans. So the plan sponsors can involuntarily disenroll someone if they don't pay their premiums, if they engage in disruptive behavior, if they provided fraudulent information on their enrollment request, or if they allow somebody else to use their enrollment card. The thing with this, I mean, these can all lead to somebody being disenrolled, but the company has to be consistent. So anybody that does this has to be disenrolled. They can't pick and choose who they involuntarily disenroll. So if somebody fails to pay the plan premium, the sponsor can choose to do nothing. Normally there's a grace period and a notice. You know, you have to pay the premium, including any back premium, with this time frame, or you're going to be disenrolled. So if the person fails to pay the premium for optional supplemental benefits on a Medicare Advantage plan, so let's say somebody has a United Healthcare or an Excellus Medicare Advantage plan, and they have the dental rider, which has an additional cost. They continue to pay the premium on their plan, but they stop paying that additional premium for the dental rider, then the company can cancel the rider. Okay, so you have to continue paying for that, which makes sense. You know, let's see, they have to, again, like I said, whatever they do has to be uniform for all plan members. However, they have the option to retain duly eligible people, or people that qualify for extra help, and they don't pay their premium. There can be, you know, they don't necessarily, there may not be a premium with those, depending on what their benefit entails. Let's see here. So enrollees' rights. For failure to pay the premium, the person has to be notified in writing and provided with a grace period of not less than 2 months. So again, you know, they'll get something in the mail saying, you know, we see that you haven't paid your premium in the past 2 months. As of this day, we're going to disenroll you unless you pay, you know, this amount. It'll be back premium or whatever it is that they owe. And then if the plan, you know, ends the person's membership, the enrollee has the right to appeal that or complain, which would be grievance. So we are at the end of the 5th module, which means this is all 5 modules of the AHIP training. I did leave this screen in. You know, this is some additional information on cms.gov, you know, enrollment information, Medicare.gov. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. So a couple things that I just want to mention is, you know, if you're a new agent and you want, you know, marketing help, you know, you need to let your clients know that you can now help them with Medicare. You know, let me know, give me a call. I'll give you my number again. It's 585-271-6400, extension 101. I can either do maybe a virtual senior event, let your clients know that you can now help them while I'm educating them about, you know, the basics of Medicare. there's other things that we can do. There's letters that we have access to that you can send to your clients, or whatever books of business you have access to. Mailers, just regular postcards that can be sent. But give me a call. That's my phone number. My email address is Janine@kafl.com. Janine is spelled JEANIE@KAFL.com. So give me a call. I hope this training has been worthwhile. I know there's a lot. There's definitely a lot in these 5 modules, so please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need additional clarification. So having said that, thank you very much, and I hope to hear from you soon.